Well, hey guys, it's Mr. Gallion. I told you guys I'd make a video to answer some of the questions you asked me earlier this week, and I know that you have a bunch, so I would like to dive into them. I will tell you, so I recorded this video earlier today, and somehow the lip syncing was completely off, so I'm making a second stab at it, but I've done it without doing any like pre-reading a whole bunch of stuff or whatever, because I want this to be as conversational as it can be. So let me just preface it by saying this. This is my personal YouTube account, one of my personal YouTube accounts anyway. It's not the school's. I'm not speaking in a capacity as an educator, but I do know that you guys have questions and I'd like to answer them, especially since we're virtual at the moment. It seems like this might be the best way to get some of this stuff out. So I'm going to read through your questions in no particular order. Some of them I probably could organize better, honestly, but I'm just going to do it the way they come, and I think we'll be good. So a lot of questions were about, one more thing. Do look at the comments, or not the comments, the description, because I will divide it up by question, so you don't have to listen to the entire thing just to get the answer to your question. So the first question that I got was, can Trump actually be removed from office this close to the end of his term? And if so, what exactly would that do? As I record this, it's Friday, I don't even know what the day is, 15th, 16th, something like that. The inauguration of Biden is going to happen on Wednesday, the 20th. So is Trump going to get removed from office this close to the inauguration of his successor? The answer is no. Can he still be impeached? Maybe. It's actually a little bit of a vague constitutional question. So the House of Representatives has voted to impeach Trump. Okay, basically they've said he incited, or what's the word they use? Incited an insurrection. Okay, the thing that happened at the Capitol where everybody rushes in and they, go into the House of Representatives and the Senate, like crazy stuff, right? The House of Representatives voted to basically say they think Trump should be held responsible for that, okay? And some of that stuff, to be honest, is crazy. People were saying, like, let's hang Mike Pence. We're going to pull these people out. There's somebody who's running through the Capitol building with zip ties. Like, what are you going to do with zip ties if you find senators? Like, what's the goal of that? But there is maybe a reason that some people would want to still impeach him anyway. If his impeachment were to go through, which again, there's a legal question as to, can you impeach somebody who's no longer a sitting president? Weird. If he's impeached, though, he would lose his $200,000 a year salary that he gets even after he leaves office. He would lose his Secret Service detail that he gets for the rest of his life. He would lose his, I think it's $1 million a year travel expense that he's given by the government. The Senate could make it so he couldn't run for office again. So there are definitely some issues or some reasons that some people would say he should. You say, well, why though? Why not just let it roll out and, roll off his presidency like anybody else would? And the answer is, if he actually did incite an insurrection, then don't you want to send a message to future presidents that we don't tolerate that no matter when it happens, we're going to, respond to it? That's the idea. Now, there are a lot of questions about can he be held accountable for what he did at that level? Can we say that he was inciting an insurrection? Why? There's a question, but that's why you have a trial, right? To make the determination. Somebody says, do we need to worry about anything happening here? And my short answer is not really. I do think that if we see anything else go down, it's probably going to be in the next week because it'll surround the inauguration of Biden. That's the thing that people seem to be the most upset about. That'll be in Washington, D.C., of course. That's why the National Guard is there. If you've seen any pictures, there are just like thousands of National Guardsmen who are camped out in the Capitol building, which is kind of a crazy thing to see. Like they built a fence around the Capitol. It's crazy stuff. There are also a lot of concerns that maybe state houses like ours in Columbia will see armed protests, not rebellions and we're going to shoot at these people, but there may be large armed protests at the Capitol buildings. It's possible. But do I think we're going to see, that we in Greer, Travelers Rest, Greenville are going to see people, running through the streets and shooting at each other? I don't think so. I'm not concerned about that at all myself. if anything were to happen, I think it'll be more on the large scale of things. And by large scale, sorry, I mean like there might be some unrest in D.C. again, kind of a thing. Okay. Somebody else says, do I think it was 100% Trump supporters at the riot, or do I think Antifa had something to do with it as well, like sending in fake Trump supporters to make the Republicans or conservatives look bad? So you said 100%, and 100% is impossible to verify. So is it possible that there were some Antifa people there? Sure, that's entirely possible. But here's what I'll tell you. Homeland Security and the FBI have both issued statements saying we don't have any proof of Antifa members at this rally. What we do know is that we have arrested a number of people because there are cameras all over D.C. There are cameras in the Capitol building. We know a lot of these people, like the guy with the horns and the painted face, like he's on all kinds of like, extreme right-wing sort of, media stuff all the time. And unless he's a plant, which I mean, maybe, but you're going to spend years doing that? Probably not. Maybe, again, possibly. You also have, there's a representative from West Virginia. He's a state representative who's a Republican who was there, who actually sent busloads of people to Washington, D.C. Probably not a guy who is there for, Antifa purposes, because he's a registered Republican. He ran and won as a Republican. Lots and lots of people have been arrested who are tied into some of these sort of more extreme movements. Okay. Now, you also have people there who we know are not extreme folks, who are, more moderates, but they just didn't like the way the election went for one reason or another. I know there's a pastor in town. There are some people, there's actually a student here who told me that he went. And even though you might say, well, he's more extreme than me, this isn't somebody who wants the United States to quit working and, whatever. So, no, I don't think that that's a large scale thing. Do I think there might be some more extreme conservative type folks behind this? Sure. But every side has extremes. That doesn't mean conservatives are bad. Okay. Do I think the United States will be able to solve its problems anytime soon? With what happened last Wednesday, it seems unlikely that people will be willing to cooperate with each other, and nobody really seems to want to even try to understand the opposing party's point of view. And I would say, yeah, that's a huge problem. We have to listen to each other. Guys, if you're only reading news, if you're reading news that advertises how conservative or how liberal it is, you're not reading news, you're reading opinions about the news, right? The real world doesn't work like that. The real world sometimes has things that makes liberals say, woohoo, and conservatives boo-hoo. And sometimes conservatives are like, yoo-hoo, and liberals are like, boo-hoo. That's just the way the world works, okay? You might not like the facts, you might not find them convenient, but that doesn't make them not facts. So if you are reading news from like somebody, I have a friend who keeps emailing me stuff, and down at the bottom of the articles, it'll say like, so click here to help us support our reporting to stop the Biden crime family. Well, if that's your stated purpose for being a news organization, you're not a news organization. Your opinion is that you're like, I don't trust these people and we're going to get them. Well, cool, but that's not news, that's opinion. So the other thing I'd say is read from a variety of sources, and not a variety of sources from just one side. So if you read Fox News all the time, maybe read MSNBC and vice versa. If you only read CNN, then try reading something that's a little bit more conservative too. It's okay. And still, even though I say that, some of these guys are considered pretty moderate. They just lean slightly one direction or the other. And I know some people say, no, they're all a bunch of liberals. Well, okay, whatever. We have to have a free press, even if you don't like them, okay? Don't trust the government to tell you what's what. That's super dangerous, okay? Okay. Do I think there will be a civil war or any type of war? I've worried about that recently. Yeah, it's a concern, and it's more of a concern now than at any other point in my life. But a couple things. Civil war happened back in the 1860s, in part because it was really easy to tell who is who. If you're a Yankee, you're from one of those states up there, you're bad. If you're from the South, you're good. I'm speaking from a Southern Confederate point of view, right? As a Yankee, I would probably look at it differently, but that's okay. Right now, how do I know that? Like if I drive home, which I'll do here in just a couple minutes, How do I know who I drive past is, good and bad? I don't. So while you might see some people who, demonstrate, I think it would mostly happen in big cities. And I don't really think you're going to see a civil war. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't expect that. Excuse me. Do I think Trump deserves a second impeachment? Am I happy with how the Georgia elections went? Wow. So here's what I would say. Am I happy with how the Georgia elections went? Let's take that one first. So this gets into opinion. So far I've tried to deal in the realm of fact. This is definitely an opinion question. Here's what I would say. The Secretary of State in Georgia is a Republican who voted for Donald Trump. And he has said multiple times after, I believe now we're at the original count plus I think 2 recounts. He has said, there is no evidence of wide-scale fraud that would change the results of this election. He says, I don't even like that, but that's the case. Like, I voted for Trump. I believe him. They have both done digital recounts using the machines, and they've done hand recounts. And still, the results are the same. Now, they are close. There's no question. It's just, I don't know what it is. It's less than 100,000 votes, I believe, which in a state the size of Georgia, that's a lot of people. So yeah, I totally understand why there is a lot of anxiety about that, but still, I think that the results are clear and I don't have any question about them. I think that the results we got are the results. I know people disagree. Again, I'm telling you, I'm trying to deal with facts here, and the facts don't really seem to bear that out. Again, I know people disagree, but just because facts are inconvenience doesn't make them not facts. Okay. Now, do I think Trump deserves a second impeachment? Well, that's an interesting question. If he did incite an insurrection, then sure, absolutely, he should be impeached. There is some real question as to, are the things that he said at that rally enough to prove he incited an insurrection all by himself? Some people would say, well, let's take it back to even before the election when he was starting to cast a doubt on the election process and our mail-in vote's going to be legitimate. And, he says things like, if I win, it's because of fraud, and he loses and people are mad if I lose, it's because of fraud. And people are immediately like, he lost, it must be because of fraud. Some people say he's been kind of dropping these breadcrumbs for people to follow that cast doubt on our entire election process the whole time. And I don't think there ought to be doubt on it. I think a lot of the concerns have really solid answers, and at this point there have been over 50 court cases that the Trump administration has lost, and you can't say those are all liberal judges. You just can't. And he won one case about let's count these votes and not those votes or something. So do I think that there's reason to doubt the election? I really don't. Do I think that election fraud happened? Yes. Election fraud happens in every election ever, almost. Do I think it's enough to overturn the results? No, I don't. And in fact, I won't go there. The election fraud that happens is really minimal, not enough to change the results. We're talking about just a handful, not tens of thousands in every election. Okay, somebody else says, I'm at a complete loss with politics and current events right now. At this point, I don't even know what news sources I can trust. I want to be more educated and up to date as to what is happening around us concerning social injustices and COVID, but I'm starting to get overwhelmed. That was more of a rant. I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I agree with that. Again, I would say, I'd point you back to what I said before. If you're reading news sources that are asking for donations based on how conservative they are or how liberal they are, no, you don't need to be getting your news from there. Look, if the news doesn't upset you sometimes, you're probably not reading the news, okay? And I'll say it again, if you're reading news that is either conservative or liberal, that's dumb, because the news is just facts. Sometimes facts are convenient for your side and sometimes they're not. That's all I know to say about that, okay? So there are charts out there, and people want to fight about these charts, of course, but there are charts out there that'll say, hey, this is, the lights just died. This is a news source that's a little bit more conservative. Here's one that's a little bit more liberal. You can Google, in fact, I'll do it right now to make sure that's the case. You can write news source bias, and I'm going to do an image search on Google, and sure enough, there's a whole chart. So news source bias, there's a great chart that I think will help you out, and there you go. You can use that, okay? How bad is the situation about Trump not leaving the White House? He's going to leave the White House. He's already moving out right now. He's even said there will be a transition on January 20th. That's right around the corner. The situation that we're in with, him trying to cast doubt on it, I think that's been a real issue, and it's something that'll continue to haunt Biden's administration even afterwards, because you're going to hear people say he's not a legitimate president. But people said Trump wasn't a legitimate president, and people said Obama before him wasn't a legitimate president. So maybe we ought to just stop doing that. Be like, the guy in office is the president. I hope the country gets better during his tenure. Disagree with him when he's wrong. Support him when he's right. Look out for the country as a whole. All right. And I actually have another video that I've already recorded, so I'm not totally sure, but I'll do one more question. Is it okay to just walk into a government building? It's kind of terrifying how easy it was for people to do that. Is there going to be any rest in the country? Will we ever have unity, or is this the thing that divides the country? First of all, yeah, it's really, you can't easily walk into a federal building. Like, I tried to bring a water bottle into the Capitol building when my wife and I were there about a decade ago, and we couldn't do that. It was first thing in the morning, so we're like, well, I don't want to throw my water bottle away, so let's just go, somewhere else. It is not that easy. But when you have a large number of people who are marching on the Capitol, how are you going to stop the mob? Especially when you're unprepared, which it seems that they were. That's a problem. That's a real problem. So anyway, I think I'm in a territory where I'm just repeating old information. So check out my second video. I'll stop it here. We're almost at 17 minutes. Guys, if you have questions, if you want to follow up on this, if you want to argue with me, that's fine. Shoot me an email or drop it in the comments below, and I'll see you real soon. Bye, guys.